The restaurant was the kind of place Dolores had only ever seen in magazines. Tall windows, draped in cream-colored fabric, tables dressed in white linen, waiters gliding between chairs like dancers who'd rehearsed their steps 1,000 times. She stood in the entrance for a moment, clutching her purse against her chest, feeling the air conditioning wash over her like a verdict. She shouldn't have come. She knew that now, looking down at herself. The cardigan that had belonged to her late husband Victor, the orthopedic shoes with the Velcro straps, her cotton dress with the small blue flowers that had seemed cheerful this morning, but now looked like something from a church rummage sale. But today was the day. 46 years ago, Victor had proposed to her over a plate of spaghetti at a restaurant they couldn't afford. Every anniversary since, they'd gone out somewhere nice. After he passed 3 years ago, she'd kept the tradition alone. One nice meal, one glass of wine, 1 hour of pretending he was sitting across from her, telling her she looked beautiful, even when she didn't. A hostess approached, young and polished, her smile flickering almost imperceptibly as she took in Dolores's appearance. "Welcome to Bellamy's. Do you have a reservation?" Dolores shook her head. "I was hoping you might have a table for one." The hostess glanced over her shoulder toward the dining room, then back at Dolores. Her smile tightened. "Let me check with the manager." She disappeared into the restaurant's gleaming interior. Dolores waited, watching the other diners through the archway. Women in silk blouses and careful makeup. Men in jackets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. She touched the sleeve of Victor's cardigan, feeling the soft, worn wool beneath her fingertips. The manager appeared. He was perhaps 40, handsome in a sharp-edged way, his suit perfectly tailored, his hair slicked back with something that caught the light. His eyes moved over Dolores quickly, professionally, cataloging and dismissing in a single glance. "Good afternoon, ma'am." He didn't offer his name. "We do have a dress code here at Bellamy's." Dolores looked down at herself again. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize. Is this not—" "It's fine." His voice was smooth, practiced. "We can accommodate you. Just follow me." She followed him through the dining room, past the windows with their view of the city, past the tables where couples leaned toward each other over appetizers and businessmen discussed deals over wine lists. The manager kept walking, past the bar, past the restrooms, around a corner she hadn't noticed, until they reached a small table wedged between a service station and the swinging door to the kitchen. "Here we are." He pulled out the chair with a flourish that felt more like mockery than courtesy. "Your server will be right with you." Dolores sat. The kitchen door swung open and closed behind her, releasing bursts of heat and clattering noise. She could smell dish soap and fryer grease, a sharp contrast to the elegant perfume of the main dining room. From here, she couldn't see the windows at all. She could barely see the other diners, just glimpses of them through the gaps in a decorative partition, like watching a party through a fence. A waiter appeared, younger than the hostess, his expression carefully neutral. "Something to drink?" "Just water, please." Dolores heard her own voice come out smaller than she intended. "And maybe a glass of the house red. Whatever's least expensive." He nodded and vanished. Dolores opened the menu, but the prices blurred in front of her eyes. She blinked hard, refusing to cry. She was 78 years old. She had survived a husband's death and a daughter's estrangement and the loss of everything she'd once called home. She would not cry over a table assignment. But sitting here in the back, invisible and unwanted, she couldn't help thinking about the house. The little yellow house with the roses out front that Victor had planted the year they got married. The kitchen where she'd taught herself to cook, then taught her daughter, then taught her grandson. The bedroom where Victor had held her hand on the last night, when his breathing had gone shallow and she'd whispered that she'd be okay, that he could go. She'd sold it 3 years ago, told everyone she wanted something smaller, something easier to manage. Told her daughter Camille the market was good and she didn't want to deal with the yard anymore. Told her grandson Adrian that she was excited to try apartment living see what all the fuss was about. None of them knew the truth. That she'd sold it because Adrian had a dream and no money. That she'd seen the business plan he'd put together, the loan applications that kept getting rejected, the way his shoulders had started to slump when he talked about the future. He wanted to buy buildings, develop properties, create something that would last. So she'd given him the money, all of it, $347,000 wired to his account, with a note that said, "From your grandfather's life insurance. He would have wanted you to have this. Start building." It wasn't exactly a lie. Victor would have wanted Adrian to have it. He just hadn't left any life insurance. The money was the house, the roses, the kitchen, the bedroom. 46 years of marriage converted into a number on a screen. Adrian didn't know. Camille didn't know. Nobody knew except Dolores and her cramped one-bedroom apartment with the view of the parking lot. The waiter brought her water and wine. She took a sip, letting the warmth spread through her chest. Around her, the kitchen doors kept swinging, staff brushing past her table without acknowledgement, as if she were just another piece of furniture tucked into the corner. She heard laughter from the main dining room, a woman's voice, high and musical, a man responding, confident and warm, the clink of glasses being raised in a toast, all of it happening in another world, just 30 feet away. Dolores pulled Victor's cardigan tighter around her shoulders and opened the menu again. She would order something small, eat it slowly, pretend this was the anniversary dinner she'd imagined. The front door of the restaurant opened, letting in a wedge of afternoon sunlight. Dolores couldn't see who entered from her hidden corner, but she heard the change in the room, the subtle shift in attention, the way the staff suddenly stood straighter. "Good afternoon, Mr. Reyes," the manager's voice. Different now, warmer, almost eager. "We weren't expecting you today. Just stopping by to check on a few things." The voice was familiar, so familiar that Dolores set down her menu, her heart suddenly pounding. "Is everything going smoothly?" "Absolutely. We've been fully booked every night this week. The new chef is working out wonderfully." Footsteps moved through the restaurant. Dolores sat frozen in her chair, not daring to look around the partition. It couldn't be. He was supposed to be in the city today, some meeting about permits or zoning, or one of those things she pretended to understand when he explained them. "Actually," the manager's voice continued, "I did have to deal with a small situation earlier. A woman came in without a reservation. Didn't quite meet our dress code, but I found her a table in the back so she wouldn't disturb the atmosphere." The footsteps stopped. Dolores closed her eyes. "What do you mean, the back?" Adrian's voice had changed, harder now, an edge she rarely heard from her gentle grandson. "Just near the kitchen. Very discreet. She seemed comfortable with it." The footsteps started again, faster now, coming closer. Dolores opened her eyes just as Adrian appeared around the corner of the partition, his face tight with confusion that melted into shock. "Abuela?" She tried to smile. "Hello, mijo. I didn't know this was one of yours." Adrian stared at her, then at the cramped table, then at the kitchen door swinging open behind her to release a blast of steam and the clatter of plates. His jaw tightened in a way that reminded her suddenly, painfully, of Victor. He turned. The manager had followed him, still wearing that smooth, professional expression, though it was beginning to falter. "You put my grandmother next to the kitchen." Adrian's voice was quiet, which made it worse, because of what she was wearing. The manager's face went pale. "I didn't realize she was My grandmother raised me." Adrian stepped closer to him. "When my father left, and my mother worked 3 jobs, my grandmother is the one who picked me up from school, made me dinner, helped me with my homework. She taught me what it meant to work hard and love people and never give up on your dreams. Mr. Reyes, I sincerely apologize. I'm not finished." Adrian's voice cracked slightly. 3 years ago, this woman sold her house. The house where she'd lived for 46 years. The house where my grandfather died. She told everyone she wanted something smaller. She gave me every cent so I could buy my first building. This building. And she never told anyone. She's been living in a tiny apartment while I've been building a real estate portfolio with her money. Dolores felt tears spilling down her cheeks now. Adrian, please. You don't have to. But he wasn't finished. So when you look at her cardigan and her orthopedic shoes and decide she's not good enough for your window tables, you're looking at the woman who made everything in this room possible, including your salary. The manager opened his mouth, but no words came out. Adrian turned back to Dolores. He crossed to her table and knelt beside her chair, taking her weathered hands in his, just the way Victor used to do. Abuela. His eyes were bright with tears. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't about me. Dolores touched his cheek. It was about watching you become who you were supposed to be. That was worth more than any house. Adrian bowed his head, pressing his forehead to their joined hands. Around them, the restaurant had gone silent. Dolores could feel the other diners watching from around the partition, could see the staff frozen in place. When Adrian looked up, he was smiling through his tears. Come on. He stood and offered her his arm. I want to show you the best table in the house. Dolores shook her head. This one's fine, mijo. Really? Adrian helped her to her feet. This table is for people who don't matter, and you matter more than anyone in this room. He walked her through the restaurant, slowly, deliberately, letting everyone see. The diners who had ignored her, the hostess who had hesitated, the manager who had hidden her away. They all watched as Adrian led his grandmother to the table by the window, the one with the view of the city, the one with the fresh flowers and the afternoon light spilling across the white linen like gold. He pulled out her chair himself, settled her into it like she was royalty. Then he sat down across from her, in the seat where Victor should have been. I'm taking you to dinner. His voice was firm. Every anniversary from now on. And we're going to talk about getting you a nicer apartment. Maybe one with a garden. I know how much you miss the roses. Dolores laughed, wiping her eyes with a napkin. I'm 78 years old. I don't need a garden. You sold yours for me. Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. The least I can do is buy you some new roses. The waiter appeared, a different one this time, older and more senior. He set down 2 glasses of champagne without being asked. Compliments of the house. He smiled at Dolores with genuine warmth. And may I say, ma'am, that cardigan is lovely. It looks very well loved. Dolores touched the soft wool of Victor's sleeve. It was my husband's. 46 years of marriage. The waiter nodded. Then it belongs at the best table. He left them alone. The afternoon light shifted through the window, warming Dolores's face. She picked up her champagne and raised it toward her grandson. To Victor, she smiled. He would have loved seeing you like this. Adrian raised his glass. To you, Abuela, the woman who gave everything and asked for nothing. They drank. Outside the window, the city sparkled in the afternoon sun. Somewhere in that city was her little apartment, with the view of the parking lot. But sitting here now, with Victor's cardigan around her shoulders and her grandson's hand in hers, Dolores felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. She felt like she was home. The manager approached their table near the end of the meal, hesitant and pale. Mrs. Reyes, I owe you an apology. His voice was stiff but genuine. I made assumptions based on appearance, and I was wrong. It won't happen again. Dolores looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached out and patted his hand. We all make mistakes, mijo. The question is what we do after. He nodded, something shifting in his expression, shame giving way to gratitude. Thank you. After he walked away, Adrian shook his head. You're too kind to people who don't deserve it. Dolores smiled, thinking of Victor, of Camille, of all the years of loving people through their worst moments. That's the only way to live, she told him. Anything else is just surviving. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he raised his glass one more time. To living, then. Dolores clinked her glass against his, watching the bubbles rise like tiny prayers. To living. And for the first time since Victor died, she meant it.